I want to show you one of the powerful features of Sass, and that's how it uses variables. When you declare variables in Sass, you use the $sign, and then you define them like CSS values. Variables in Sass can be one of these 6 different types. There are numbers, and you can declare variables that have pixel values, em values, or any sort of unit like inches. There are strings, and these are going to contain some sort of string content. There's color variables, and this is how you can assign colors, and you can use named colors, hex values, or RGB values. There's booleans, which can either be true or false. There are null variables, and there are list variables. And with list variables, you could define something like a border that uses multiple properties. So in this example, I'm using the shorthand notation for declaring a border on some sort of element. Let's go into the code and see this in action. Here's the HTML code that we're going to be using. As you can see, it's kind of similar to what we used before. I just added a couple of other elements. So I have an H1 and an H2. Inside my article tag, I have 3 paragraphs. The middle paragraph has a class of special, and then I have an unordered list. I've already created a file called example02variables.sass, and it is worth noting that in my HTML, I've updated the path to the CSS file, so now it's pointing to this new CSS file that will be in existence shortly. I'm going to come into my Sass file, and we'll begin by creating some variables that we can use within this file. I'm going to start off by creating 2 variables that use the color value. As you can see, my first color value is going to use RGB color. My second value is using a standard hex type of color declaration. Now I'm going to create a variable that is going to be a multi-value variable. This is going to allow me to assign a border to elements. So you can see here I'm actually nesting one of my color variables as the color attribute for this particular border. Let's create some numeric value variables next. I'm going to create one for small size and one for large size, and I'm using ems in these definitions. The final variable that I'm going to be using in this example is going to be a string variable. And you can see that I'm using a variable name of message, and then I'm going to use this content right here. Now we'll go ahead and declare some rules for the items on our page. I'll start off by using the same rule that we used in one of the other exercises that I worked on with you. This is just going to assign a sans serif font family and a width of 500 to our main tag. Next, we'll define some rules for our header H1. Here we'll be using quite a few of the variables that we created. We'll start off by making the color declaration. This one is going to use our head color 1. Every time I want to call the variable, I simply add the $sign, and this allows me to have access to that particular color. Next, we'll set a background color, and the background color is going to use our head color 2. Then I'm going to set the border radius, and the border radius is going to use my extra small size. Then we're going to go ahead and we're going to assign a rule for our border, and for the border we're going to use our thin border variable. Next we'll set the padding, and the padding is going to use our extra small size variable. And finally on this one I'm going to set my font size, and my font size is going to be set for my large size. If I save my page and we look at what we've done so far, you can see the page has updated with the items that we put on main, and then you can see the header is now displaying all of the different attributes that we specified. Let's go ahead and let's change some things that are happening to the special paragraph. First of all, I'm going to make a new selector for my special paragraph. For this, I'm just going to set the border on the bottom. And for the border bottom, we're going to use our thin border variable. Now I'm going to make a more specific selector that is going to use special, and then we'll use our pseudo class of after. This is going to allow me to insert something after the content that exists on the special paragraph. So we'll use our content property, and we're going to go ahead and inject the value of the message variable. I'll also go ahead and I'll change the color of this item to use our head color 1. And finally, I'm just going to change the font style to be italic. Let's save this, and if we come and refresh our page, you can now see that this special paragraph is underlined and it has new content that's been created because of the CSS that we've built. As you can see, there's lots of different ways in which you can use variables. Variables are great because they make it really easy for you to reuse common values over and over again. It also makes it really easy for you to manage those common values. So if I decide at some point that I want to change something in this content, instead of using this dark teal color here, what if we wanted to change that? Let's say we wanted to change it to an orange color. Well, instead of going into all these different locations where I'm using the head color 1, and remember we're actually using it one of our variables, all I need to do is go up to head color 1 and change this to a new color. I'll just use the keyword of orange. If I save this and we refresh, you can now see that every place where we were using the dark teal has now changed to orange. You can see how very quick and powerful it was for me to make that specific change. All I had to do was change it in one location, and all of these things updated. I'm sure that you'll find variables to be extremely helpful in your workflow process. And they're something that you can't achieve with just CSS, but using Sass or Sassy CSS, you can easily incorporate variables into your projects.